Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lifeonaire Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better lives because they've created lives and businesses they love. They go hand in hand. I am joined by my always Polish co-host, Polish Peter.
That's right. Always Polish.
That's right.
Not just in case. Some days or
it's not
some
just on
hours,
podcast
always.
Episodes. It's every day, all day.
That's right. Even when I sleep. So listen, what's going on over here? Are you trying to be wiser or something? You're
what's
the
get
deal?
a little salt and pepper, like facial hair going. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna keep it. I'm not a particular fan, but we're gonna
side
experiment
gig
a little
for
bit.
being a Santa at Christmas.
Man, that's the new business.
Okay,
it's a new business.
Right,
I'm the Santa. Dude, I did play Santa
you-
Claus once for young kids. I'm sure I scarred them for life. Anyway.
What? Okay, we need to do an episode on that.
It'll be a different episode. All right. Well, dude, listen.
Can we find this on the internet?
I don't think so.
Okay. For listeners, go search.
Right.
All my people, go out there and start searching.
Dude, so we got today's episode. I'm super excited about, man. I had a chance to meet this guy recently. I was on his podcast. And I really like what he does. And his name is Nana Bonsu. He helps business owners scale, create systems, processes. And we talk about some things in this episode, man, that like I thought I was listening to myself. I'm like, wow, we talk about this exact same stuff. And so it was really cool. We talked about how the business owner can remove themselves from their business. We talk about, how to get a lot of different things around that.
Yeah, and if you're listening carefully, you're going to notice some of the nuggets that he drops in their one-liners. And when we do at the end of this podcast, when we do our takeaways, I'm going to talk a little about some of the takeaways that I've gotten out of this podcast. So I want you guys to listen to see what you guys can pull out that's going to help you in your business, whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned business owner, and how you can actually systemize your business to grow it even faster.
Yeah, man, great discussion we have. Let's jump in right now to our interview with Nana Bonsu. Nana, what's up, man? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show.
Thanks. Good to be here, Jason.
Man, we spoke recently. I had the privilege of getting to know you, and I thought your knowledge and your expertise, as well as kind of like the things you're doing for small business owners, to be valuable for the Lifeonaire community. So I wanted to get you on. Tell people a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I run a small business development coaching firm called InfiniteHorizons.com, and I also host a weekly podcast show called Build Value by Choice. And I'm actually also working on a little book. But the bottom line is I'm actually an engineer by training, but a creative by nature. And so one of the things, if you have any kind of entrepreneurial creative kind of bent, it's very difficult getting boxed in. And I had gotten boxed in the corporate world for a while. And I had dipped in and out of entrepreneurship and back into the corporate world. And I finally decided that there was something there after I had watched a lot of M&As. And I felt like there was some things that the businesses that were acquired a lot of times didn't have in place, especially when it came time to integrate. And I felt like, in the David versus Goliath world, I kind of want to help the small business owners level the playing field a little bit.
So, dude, hold on a second here. Like, so if you're an engineer by trade?
I'm an engineer. I actually did a chemical engineering as an undergrad. Okay, so this is fancy, man. Wow. So hold on though.
This mixing all kinds of stuff together.
I know, but hold on, man. I don't think of typically engineers are not small business guys. Like they really focus in their little super micro niche of detail and this and that. So how is it that you, and by the way, I could see the value of being an engineer and applying that to business because you think differently than a regular business person. But how did you actually even get interested in this? Is it just because you didn't see options, or?
It was, I think it was just, like I said, it was something within me. Yeah, I think I may have been miscast.
Right.
Yeah, I think I was kind of miscast. For a long time as an engineer, there was just the creative side of me that was just kind of like it was dying to get out.
Okay.
And the way to express between my desire to help people, because I did a lot of volunteering and stuff like that, and it just always felt like the way for me to make a bigger impact, right? And also. And I actually got to learn more about it once I did an MBA when I was a manager at a multi financial services firm. And so I did an MBA to just kind of, strengthen my executive management skills. And through the course of that, I got to do some internships and co-ops and help other hospitality businesses and nanotech businesses. And I realized that this is something that I want to explore more of. So that is essentially, and I had also looked at, especially with the financial crisis that happened back in the internet, bust, I had lost a lot of money. And so one of the things I realized was I care about my money more than, thinking that I'll work so hard and then give it to somebody else to manage it for me. And then come to find out, I still lost money regardless. So between that, I said, okay, this is something that I want to explore more out of. And it's just something that I really enjoy. I found that I enjoyed it. I decided to just kind of continue on the path.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so you, I want to just rewind here. So you realize that the engineering thing is not going to cut it for you. You want to start to go in business for yourself. And so you hone your craft, you get your MBA. And then what happens? You started helping businesses, or like, how did you get those first couple of clients, by the way? Cause like, I hear this all the time. People are like, man, like, yeah, but who's going to listen to me? Like I'm an architect, or I was a school teacher. Like, who's going to listen to me? Like, how did you make that jump?
Jason Wojo.
Right. Or I'm Polish.
Right. So the way it essentially comes down to, freebie training, finding friends and colleagues that are, into businesses.
Okay.
And just offering your services to them. So I had
for free. Was that free?
For free.
Okay. Just to learn, to get your,
get to, and also to test out my ideas and then get feedback, feedback on it. So, I mean, it's just, even in the engineering world, you pilot things, right? You pilot things. Like I had been, dealing with internships and stuff like that, since high school and college, right? And so you do pilot things. You go to a plant, you do it on a smaller scale, and then you scale it, right? So that was just kind of the lab kind of thing. You need to think of it as do a lab thing, test it out, test your ideas out before you go to the big leagues. And so that's basically the similar principles that I apply.
That's fascinating. And I love that. And so you're really, and this is something, I don't know if you ever heard of Rich Schefren. I'll never forget this guy. He's kind of a big business guy now. One of the things that he did was very similar to you. He said he started helping people for free to get to build his skills, to build his client list, and to start generating results for people. And he ended up asking them like, hey, if I generate this extra money for you, will you give me a portion of it? Like, and I don't remember what percentage it was, 10%. I have no idea. And so, but he's like, listen, if I don't help you, you don't owe me a penny. It's all my risk. And so when you're kind of going in here and helping people, I'm guessing like you started to realize things that you thought would work that didn't work, and things that maybe you didn't anticipate came up, and you started really refining your process. Tell us how that kind of worked out. Yeah.
I mean, some of the things that you realize are sort of like, obviously you have hypotheses and ideas and things like that. And, some of the things are going to work out and some are not. And sometimes depending on the type of business, right? Because what works in a service business is different from what would work in a product or an e-commerce type of business. So there's some nuances that you realize that, hey, you have to it's not a one size fits all. And then the other thing you realize is that perhaps not all your principles, and you find out where you actually kind of fit, right? Because I realized that because I've done a lot of services type of work, right? I fitted more in like in the technology and financial services industries than, for instance, I would do it like in healthcare, right? As much as I enjoy healthcare, and I really didn't understand the lingo and all of that stuff. So those are some of the things that you realize that, hey, this model doesn't particularly work for this.
Gotcha. And then from there, I'm guessing then you started going into, and you mentioned kind of before we even started that you still do some free stuff, or is everything paid now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do like as a mentoring, just okay. It's more like career. It's not for on the business side. So helping other people who are like mid-career, they just kind of come up. And I'm on the board of advisors of an education technology company, just helping high school students find their career path. It's sort of like career learning type of thing, and helping to connect them with other industry veterans who can help just kind of guide them on what the workplace is like, or if you want to go into business, what it's like, that kind of thing.
That's awesome, man. So I got my PhD, and It's funny because my friend also got a PhD from the same school, and they've asked him like to come back and offer career advice to the current graduate students. They have not asked me, man. So I'm like,
what does that tell you?
I know. They're like, don't talk to our people. You're going to tell them not to go into science. So,
why do you think I said earlier, like some people listen to Jason Wojo?
Yeah, dude, they totally haven't reached out to me.
Right there. What else do you want?
So, well, okay. So that's awesome, man. And so that's your heart of giving back. So talk to me about, and I'm really intrigued by this because like, I think, as an engineer, you have a brain that functions in a very specific way that could be really advantageous for a business owner, someone looking to create systems and processes. What you do is like, you help them scale and systemize their business and build processes. Talk to me about the kind of businesses that need this, and how does somebody know, they're just starting out in business, or maybe they're seasoned? Like, what are some of the things you look for in a business that, like, man, this is what they need? Like, how does somebody know that?
Well, a couple of things. Number one is, has their revenue plateaued? In other words, the last 3 years, right? Have their revenues stayed flat? If you earn like $1 million in sales 3 years ago, and you start earning $1 million in sales, you know what the saying goes: if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Especially with inflation, all of that stuff. So $1 million, from 3 years ago, it's not the same as $1 million for today. So that's one. Number two is, does the business owner have a life? Are they working, too long? Are they the only ones that make a decision? Are they the hub in the business? And then the other thing is the person's identity tied to the business, right? So it could be simple things like, do you consider yourself a business owner? Or do you consider yourself as, do you own a business, right? Sometimes those are two different things. And so the question of being efficient just, comes down to how much are you able to do with whatever you have? Are you able to do more with less? And, just the transparency of processes. Do you depend on a few key superstars to get things going, right? That kind of thing. So those are some of the things that, you start to kind of ask or observe, and then those are like symptoms, and then you start to realize, okay, what if we could do this, and that? How would that change? Or like if there's too many steps, or there's too much effort, or it takes too long to get something that is supposed to be done in half the time done, then perhaps it may be time to revisit that process.
And so when you say revisit the process, you're saying like look at what your business process is for that specific task, or look at like how this is getting done.
Yeah. More importantly, from the perspective of the customer, right? So if I'm a customer and you are the bank, and I come to you, and for me to get my money out, right, I have to like go through 15 different steps to get there, right? So the question is, why is that, right? How many of those steps actually contribute to the revenue generating things, or to me having a good experience? A lot of times you look at it, it's like a lot of these steps are like maybe they're just some policies and processes that were put in place because maybe there was a good idea, that there was a reason for it like 15 years ago or 5 years ago, but those reasons no longer apply, right? And so, but a lot of times when the processes are set up, they never, we never revisit to understand why some of these steps were put in place in the first place, right? And maybe, if they no longer apply, if those assumptions are no longer valid, maybe it's time to eliminate some of those things.
So listen, hold on. I want to touch something, because I think you said something really important that I don't want to overlook here. When you talk about setting up the process and systems, you mentioned from the customer's perspective. And I think that's an important aspect, because a lot of businesses, when you think about it, when they sit down and they're looking to set up the process, they're looking, okay, how do we set up this process to make my job easier? Right? And they don't look from that customer's perspective, but yet we're serving the customer, right? I mean, the whole business is about serving the customer. So I think it's an important distinction to look at it, because, I mean, if you look at, like, for instance, McDonald's, right? Are their process set up to help the employees? What's the first thing that came in? To make it more efficient, to give somebody that burger and as fast as possible? Or is it to make the employee's job easier? And I have to believe it's probably more on the customer side, right?
Yeah, and that's why they don't necessarily have the best burger in the world, but yet they make billions of dollars, because your process is so efficient. You go through the drive-through, it's just a couple of steps. Boom, you place your order through the intercom, right? You go to the next window, you pay your money, and then you get your bag at the next window, boom, you're out of there. The next car comes through, they just, rolling people through. They're rolling people through. So that's.
To that point, Peter, and I want to come back to this. That was what I was going to say earlier, is like, this is all from the customer's perspective, right? But that, whether we're talking about McDonald's or someone else, my guess is McDonald's has gone through hundreds of iterations of what that ideal process is. And my guess is that they are probably still tweaking, improving. I don't know that. But there's always seems to be a place to continually look at this. It doesn't seem like it's a one and done thing.
Right. And that's why you got to go through process reviews, and you can do it on your own frequency. Right. So for instance, depending on the franchise, the process itself may not change, but certain things could be tweaked. Right. So for instance, if you're in the African-American community, the menu may be a little bit different. Right. So for instance, Magic Johnson gave some examples a couple of weekends ago that, he bought Starbucks franchises, and he told them that, the community in LA that he was at, they're not interested in certain things. Right. So you tweak the menu, but the process is essentially the same. Right? And that's basically the template, the process. That's why they're so efficient, because you can take that same process and go to a different site and boom. And so the owner, in Magic in that case, wouldn't have to be there to try and supervise, because the manuals are in place, and then you can bring in more and more people to do it. And the other thing is, you don't have to find like highly skilled people, right? Because we talk about labor shortages all the time. It opens up the pool of people. As long as they're teachable and they have the right character for your culture, you have the process already defined.
So talk to me a little bit about, so a second ago we talked about, making your job easier versus being customer facing. And I can't help but think about that comment in addition to what you said earlier, where if you're a business owner who, you're wearing too many hats, do you have a life? Are you working too much? Are you the bottleneck in your business? How do you know, because that's a problem, right? And we talk about this a lot in Lifeonaire, if your business, does you own your business, or does your business own you? And so when you come to systemizing or creating processes, when do you make it something that's customer facing, and when should you actually do something that helps you step out of the business? Because these are all problems. Like if you're running the business, you're one person, you're the bottleneck, you're the problem. Something happens to you, your business is done. How do you know when you should work on one thing versus another?
Well, I would say the first place to start would be the revenue generating side of things.
Okay. All right.
Right. Because your business exists to not just make profit, but your business doesn't exist without a customer, right? So you start with the revenue generating side, and then you streamline that process, right? How do customers come into your business? How do prospects become customers in your business? And so the cycle from coming in to fulfilling the service and the customer support, that process is where you would start, because that's your primary value chain, right? So you streamline that. And the other thing is, if you as the owner can take a vacation for 3 months without your business collapsing, then you have something in place. So the question is, maybe you can start taking vacation, like 1, 2, 3 week vacations or 5-week vacations as a testing ground, to the point that you can, take off for 3 months, 9 months, whatever, without your business collapsing. That's when you have all the right processes defined and documented.
Do you see business owners being able to do that, or is that like more of a pie in the sky? Like, is that realistic for people to be able to do that?
Oh, absolutely. If McDonald's has done it, so can every single business can do it. I know some business would like to feel like the thing is so convoluted that they can't do. Well, then maybe that's just where simplification comes in terms of your business model, right? If you want to scale, you have to simplify your business. For instance, if your business requires your employees to have like 4 PhD degrees, that's not going to scale, right? So it comes down to your goals. Are you trying to scale your business, or are you trying to just kind of be a craftsman and just kind of have like your little business that dies after you are no longer around, right? So that's something that you have to decide as what is your vision. And if your vision is to grow and scale, then you absolutely must make your business totally independent of you. Because at some point, whether you live to be 100 years or not, at some point your business is going to have to change hands. Whether it's going to be transferred to your kids or whether it's going to be transferred to a third party. So your business is going to have to be able to live on without you. And the question then is, what is the mechanism for that to happen? Because sometimes what happens is some business owners because their identity is tied to the business and their purpose is tied to the business, they don't know what to do if they're no longer running the business. But the question, if you're not running the business, there are so many other things to do. You look into the future. You're establishing the vision for growth. You're also able to do things outside of your business. Your business is just a vehicle, right? You can do a lot more of your hobbies. You can spend more time with your family. You can do a lot of mentoring, right? And so there's just so many, you actually end up having more influence and a bigger impact on society, like what the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos and all those people are doing now. We have this core conflict. Most business owners tend to go into business because they want independence, right? They want independence, and so they set up a business as the vehicle for achieving that independence. However, they're trapped inside the business because they're running day to day and nothing, no decisions can be made, nothing can run well without them being around. Well, you're no longer independent, right? So the question then is, how do we use the business as the vehicle for independence in a way that does not take your independence away from you?
So do you think that, and it makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of business owners sometimes do have reluctance of stepping away from their business because like the things you mentioned, like they identify with their role, they feel important, they're rewarded, they're acknowledged, everything else. How do you feel that more business owners have a challenge on the mental and emotional side of letting go and systemizing and creating processes, or is it on the technical, like they don't know how to, like they want to, but they don't know how to do it?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
Right. But the most important one is the internal one. Right. There's a lot of times there's an evolutionary process that needs to happen. Right. We need to make manifest that there's maybe some internal insecurities or internal fears that the owner has of letting go, the fear of losing control. Or nobody can do it as well as they can, type of mentality. This is their baby, their blood, sweat, and tears, that kind of thing. So that is more difficult than the skill set. The technical one, you can get a business coach or some mentor to help you, right? But if your internal thing is not resolved, you're still going to resort back to the same old habits.
So how does somebody that's struggling with that, like you mentioned earlier that, you could do all these other things. Is that when you tell somebody that, is that something that they typically like, oh yeah, I guess I can? Or do you feel like there's resistance there? And how do you actually get somebody to really step away? Like how do you start that process for them to show them this is actually going to work. Your business isn't going to crash and burn. You're not going to feel like a loser that doesn't contribute, and you're going to be bored. And how do you actually start that process?
Yeah, so I'll take from the recent to the previous one. So the way to show them case studies and stories of business owners that have done that, both the big ones like the Bezos and the whatnot of the world. But then it's like, okay, these are the big ones. But then there's other small business owners that have gone through the same thing, that have a second life. But see, this is where having a mentor, a coach, comes into play, because there's a transition period. Because you can't go from being a business owner that's 95% of your time is spent in the business to all of a sudden, you don't have much, quote unquote, much to do. You have a lot to do, but it's just a different role, a different way of operating. And so you need to be prepared for that. It's like going from being an individual contributor to being a manager. It's a different skill set, and you need to be trained and prepared for that. Right? And so that is where having the long-term vision and the long-term goals come into play. And you need somebody to help you, go through. That's why champion athletes have, coaches and all of that stuff, right? You need somebody who's in your corner, who's going to help hold you accountable and remind you that, hey, it's like you need a Yoda, right? So it's going to help you say, okay, hey, you said that this was your 5-term goal, right? And this was your plan. How are we doing against the plan? And so that's basically, so giving them examples, case studies, things of that sort, help them see, okay, this is possible. And also, if showing them both the good and the bad, like the folks that didn't do that, and how at some point, because sometimes things are not always in your control, right? COVID can happen. A COVID type of pandemic can happen. All of a sudden, things wash, and you want to get out fast and you can't because your business is not worth as much. The other thing is you can have a disability, or even like maybe one of your key employees who have a disability. So having your business being able to be prepared for any kind of situation actually gives you a peace of mind. Now, in terms of whether they are accepting or resistant to some of these suggestions, a lot of times, yeah, they agree with it, but in reality, it's almost like, some people nod their heads, but they actually operate differently, right? So yeah, so that's where it's some of those things you really have to leave it to the owner to just kind of make their own call and come to their own realization. But if they're interested, they'll work with you, or they'll work with me to just make sure that we help them, right, get to where they need to be, right? Because at the end of the day, we always need to come back to their core motivation. And a lot of times their core motivation, and it also depends on they're different type of owners, right? Some owners, they just want to be the master of their craft and they don't want to be the best at doing whatever they do. Those are not really purely business owners. Those are like professionals, like that are like have their own practice, right? Like an attorney or a doctor or somebody, right? So so they're trading their time for money. Now there may be other type of business owners who are like looking to just grow to tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars and then sell it. They look at themselves as how many businesses they've created, transferred, and things of that. But most business owners that tend to deal with people who are motivated by freedom and independence. They want that freedom, right? And so we come back to, okay, if you want that freedom, what does freedom and independence mean to you? What does independence mean to you, right? If independence means that you want to be able to have enough wealth to do whatever you want, whenever you want, or you want to be able to travel and play golf and spend more time with your family, then the question is the way you're operating allowing you to do that? If it's not, then we got to reconsider, right? What are some of the things you could do to come back to that core motivation?
I mean, I love what you're talking about here because it sounds like Lifeonaire. I mean, think about it. You talked about the vision. You got to write your vision, what you want your personal life to look like, and how is this business called the vehicle going to align with that personal vision to help me live that personal freedom and independence and things like that you mentioned. Several things like you creating the business that's simplicity, creating systems and processes. So you're able to do that. I'm curious for you, because one of the things that as we are business owners and we are growing our businesses and we're going after, whatever is that our visions are, we all learn different lessons for ourselves, the journey that we all have. I'm curious, over the years, as you've been going through your journey, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned for yourself that has helped you in your business?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things I've learned is, always make sure you have the right goals, right? Have a goal. Setting goals is very important, and stick to those goals. The other thing is learn to leverage the skill set of other people, whether it's delegating or partnerships or things of that sort, right? It's very, very important. One of the things that I personally, I had a challenge with was I was cursed with talent, right? I felt like I could do it all, but I wasn't really good at everything. But that was a flaw of mine. I didn't realize that I may be able to do this 75%, but there's somebody who can do it, 100%, right? So why don't I collaborate with that person, right? So there's that, learning to leverage the skills and the capacities of other people, right? Whether it's through delegation or partnerships. And then the other thing will be, keep learning, because the world is constantly changing, right? So continue to learn, continue to avail yourself of new information, new skill sets, just new avenues.
One thing you said about the goals, and you mentioned having the right goals. What is the right goal? How you determine that?
The right goal is the one that gets to whatever destination or vision that you have in mind of yourself, right? And so the right goal is something that has a certain time component to it. It is something that is clearly defined, something that is that's just the bottom line. Something that is clearly defined within a time frame and gets you to your destination, whatever that destination is, right? So the question, that's why it's important for you to have a sense of purpose, right? Because if you don't know what your core purpose is, you're gonna just kind of bounce around a little bit more. So I would say the right goal is the one that gets you to your preferred destination, the one that where it is enumerated enough that you can actually map out a plan to achieve it. The goal needs to be achievable, right? Otherwise, you'll be demotivated from actually going after it, right? So having even the goal can be turned into sub goals. Like if your goal is to double your revenue in the next 3 years, right? What does that mean, right? So the next 3 years means that maybe by the end of this year, you need to be able to increase your revenue by like 30% because you got to kind of start small before you start really taking off. It doesn't like go like a 45-degree angle. And so what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of getting the 30% increase, right? And so those are some of the things that you start to kind of break down. And then you start to realize, well, how are we doing against that? Because once you slip against those kind of monthly goals, then you realize, hey, chances are you're going to be off track against your 3-year goal. And so there's some things that you need to do to course correct.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, man. Well, this has been awesome. I did want to touch on right at the beginning, you mentioned you were working on a book. What's that about?
Well, it's essentially about some of the things that we're talking about, just effectiveness and efficiency of the owner. A lot of business owners are micromanagers, or they how about their business. They may not consider themselves micromanagers, but that's essentially what it is. If all decisions come through them, then they are basically micromanaging the business. And so the question is, how do we get them to go from being an owner-centric business to a system-centric business? And so that's essentially what that, so it's more dealing with the internal struggles that we talked about rather than the external, like technical kind of thing. It's more because that's been a challenge. And I feel like if we can deal with the internal challenges, the external can be handled.
That's awesome, man. I think that's awesome. When should we look for this?
I'll say a couple of months, certainly sometime between now and November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man. We're looking forward to it. Let us know when it's out.
Absolutely. We'd love to come back and talk about it.
Dude, thanks for being on the Lifeonaire show. How do people learn more about what you're doing? Like if they want to track you down?
Yeah, sure. They can check me out on my podcast, Build Value by Choice, or they can look me up on LinkedIn where all my information is there.
Fantastic, man. Hey, thanks for being on the Lifeonaire show.
Wonderful. It's great to be here.
Dude, man, I feel like Nana should be a Lifeonaire because he's talking our language, my brother.
Yeah, he is. And he's got a cool accent to go with it. So right. Here's the thing. Some of the takeaways, man, from this thing that jumped out at me is that like he is talking similar to what we were already talking, which confirms what we've been saying to you guys for the longest time, like how powerful that ideology, or whatever you want to call it, is. You start with your personal vision. What do you want your independence and your freedom to look like? What does that personal life look like to you? And how is this business going to become the vehicle to help you get that vision fulfilled? Right. And a lot of business owners, they don't, whether they realize it or not, they don't look at it that way. You know what I mean? Because the business takes over their entire life. And creating those systems and processes helps you kind of get the right mind shift to be able to go and start looking at, okay, what do I need to set up the system and process to help me get closer to the personal vision? And one thing that you mentioned is that being, customer centric when you set those things up.
That was a big take home for me, because also that's linked to revenue. And so, yes, it's awesome. And this is where, man, like, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. Like, so I love what he said, but I also wonder, like, let's say, and this is where every business owner probably needs a little discretion on their own part. But let's say, for instance, you're working in your business a ton and you could be focusing on higher income generating activities for your business, but you're doing all this extra stuff. Does it make sense to to create processes for those things in your business? Because that still leads to revenue too. I don't know. Like at the end of the day, I love that perspective though. Like look through lens of what's the
Customer
journey like for your customer, and that'll be valuable for you. I really like that he said, he mentioned this right at the end, being business owner-centric versus systems-centric in the business. And that's very interesting. It also struck me as he was talking, man, I think almost all of the reasons why we submerge ourselves into our businesses revolve around fear. Like it's about a fear of somebody else doing it not as good as us, or it's a fear of letting go of who are we as a person and our identity if we're not working. It's a fear of like, hey, this is my baby. I don't want to let it go. But listen, if you're a parent right now and you're listening to this, do you want to be caring for your 28-year-old or 38-year-old child? No, you want them to go on their own. So think of your business the same way. Like it's a developmental process. And yes, you're just like as a parent, you are learning you're learning those skills as you are being a parent. It's the same as a business owner. Like you're not just born with all these things. You got to develop them so that you can hand off your baby someday to go to college and to have a life. And it's the same exact thing with a business. Like it shouldn't be dependent on you unless, like he mentioned, you're a craftsman, you're an attorney, you're someone who you enjoy the work yourself, but realize it's not a true business. You're kind of like self-employed.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, those are really good points because it helps you scale the business, letting go of some of those things. Like you said, a lot of this our place of fear. You know what I mean? Like nobody can do it as well as I do.
Yeah.
I think that's our place of fear. You know what I mean? You're not that nobody can do as well as you can do. It's just that there's inadequacy within you that's allowing you to hold on to and not letting go. Few other things that I've picked up from this particular episode, those little nuggets that he dropped. He says, at one point he said, if you want to scale, you got to simplify your business.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, if you think about it, when we talk at the 3-Day Get Life Giveaways, the 4 stages of financial prosperity, we talk about simplification, simplifying your business for a long time, because it's very difficult to scale something that is like crazy, like complicated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's one nugget. And the other thing he said too is, if every decision has to go through you, you're a micromanager.
Yeah. Even if, and that struck me too, man. You're not maybe intentionally doing it, but you're unintentionally doing it.
Right. Because a lot of times people think about it, micromanagers, as, okay, I have to look at every single step that somebody does, right? Like I'm hovering over them. And some business owners are doing that. So if that's the only thing that you look at as a micromanager, he kind of took it to a whole new level and talk about it. If every single business decision in your business has to go through you, you're being a micromanager. So now you start to look at the processes that needs to be put in place and systems to maybe eliminate some of those decisions off of you. So then somebody takes charge of that. You hire a manager or assistants or whoever it might be, depending on your business. And now the business is allowed to grow because guess what? Up to this point, you're a micromanager. You're a bottleneck.
Yeah,
for most
totally, man. And we teach at the Business Builder Workshop how to get out of that. We break down your business and look at each task and role and responsibility and show you where you should be stepping out of and how to create systems and processes around the other things. And that's an important thing. And the part that we didn't have a chance to really dive into is like, how do you actually do it? Once you've mentally and emotionally accepted you should do it, the next step I think is pick something small that's easy to systemize or remove yourself from, and build your confidence that this is possible, that you can do it and your business isn't going to burn down. And then remember, you're developing your skills as well to learn how to systemize and delegate as well.
I'll tell you this though, and you guys can call me out on it. I think the how part is the easiest thing out of this entire equation.
Yeah.
First, you got to figure out you kind of a thing. 2, figure out what it is that you need to put the process in, or whatever the case may be, right? The what and the why, and then how's going to come. Because it's either one of your employees got a better how on creating the system, or you have somebody else who already created that kind of a system, then you can take it on. Or you start talking to people around you and seeing how can we create a system that is better. And I bet you the how is going to come. The hardest thing is to figure out what it is that I want to take on first and things like that. And why do I want it? And once you get that done, how's going to work itself out,
Well,
I think.
To your point, man, I even think like knowing what to delegate and get rid of and systemize is probably easy as well. It's really wrapping your head around the process and deciding you're going to do it. You know, we talk about this all the time in Lifeonaire. Is like, you know, you mentioned the 4 stages of financial prosperity, and in the 4th stage, your assets produce your income, and your money works for you. Well, the way most people have their businesses set up is it's almost like a liability, but it requires them to do it. It's almost like in the stage 2 of our 4 stages, we're making the money. Well, most business owners, the way they've set up their business, they're the ones making the money. But what if you had a different model, a different paradigm for what a business should be? And the definition of a true successful business was one that your business created money for you instead of you creating the money for the business. And so I think if you look at it with that filter, it could be really powerful in helping you overcome any mindset limitations that may accompany making the change.
Right on, my brother.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, listen, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We love doing this, man. We get to do this like every week. We're coming to you with what we hope is powerful, impactful, fun, entertaining. Anyway, we hope you guys love this. Leave us a review, please. Like, leave us a rating. Give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, give us a thumbs down. We want to know. We want to improve. We want to grow. Like, listen, we know you love us enough to tell us the truth, right? So if you've enjoyed the episode, tell us. If there's something we can work on, let us know. We're here to serve you. If you want to hear from an expert on a topic, let us know. Put it in the Lifeonaire closed Facebook group. If you don't know about that already, it's an awesome place to communicate, to discuss Lifeonaire, to talk about business, investing, everything and anything in between. And we'd love to see you over there. Until next time, guys, we will see you next week. Have a great one, everyone.